Hello! Hi everyone! Welcome to Guiding Voice podcast series, the guiding voice for a better future. This podcast is to help students and young professionals to shape their careers. Thank you for tuning in. This is Naveen and I'm with my co-host Sudhakar. Dear listeners, in this episode, we are presenting you a strategic topic: how businesses make decisions in technology investments and its impact on roles and thereby jobs. This is a strategic topic and is something which typically happens behind the scenes, and the leaders get to work on it after spending some time in their careers. And this is an excellent opportunity for all our listeners, irrespective of their career stage, to get to know something very, very important and which will help them grow as a future leader.
To make us understand various aspects of this business strategy, we are excited to have Prasad with us today. Prasad Mopidevi is working as a CTO of a leading bank in the Middle East, driving digital transformation and other key IT initiatives. In his illustrious career, Prasad has been associated with some of the major corporates like PricewaterhouseCoopers, IBM, TCS at various capacities. In addition to his formal education, which is Masters in Science and PGDBA, Prasad also holds certifications in IBM Cloud Space, ITIL, COBIT, and TOGAF. When Prasad is not traveling, which is rare, Prasad loves to mentor and coach the professionals on overall business strategy. Thank you, Prasad, for joining us today, and we really appreciate your valuable time.
Yeah, hi Sudhakar and Naveen. It's my pleasure to join, and I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Prasad. Without further ado, let us jump into your view of the business world. So let's start from the basics. What do you mean by business strategy? Meaning, how does it impact the business decisions?
Yeah, sure. To many of us, business strategy is a vague concept, but to very simply define, in the words of Kotler, business strategy is driven from vision, which is closely linked to mission and then the tactics that business use. Vision is somewhere that a business or an organization or a culture that they want to get to in the future. And strategy is something, basically mission follows vision, where they decide on what do they need to get there, right? And strategy is about how do you get there and achieve that vision. All these are closely related, and tactics are the short-term things that the business will do to achieve the strategy. So if we take an example, vision is something like you hear organizations say, I want to achieve 30 billion by US dollar revenue by 2030. That could be vision. Mm-hmm. Strategy is what do I do to get to that vision, right? And how I will get there is the mission that I will establish for the organization. Tactic would be, okay, now I defined that vision a while back, but now COVID has happened. So how do I adjust my strategy in order to take some short-term actions so that I can still achieve my vision? Or do I go and refine my vision, right? Those would be the tactics. So that's in a nutshell what strategy is, and very closely linked to vision and mission.
That's very simply put, Prasad. I think our listeners will have great appreciation of this, the interlinkage between vision, mission, strategy, and how tactics play into this overall game. Thank you. Moving on to the next level. So at the organizational level, we have all these things defined. Why should the employees, at various levels, be appreciative of this overall business strategy of the company or say their business unit?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Typically when we pass out of college, we think that strategy is for the top people in the organization. But it is very important for every employee or even for students who will be employees in the future to understand the organization's vision, mission, strategy, and sometimes even the tactics, because that will help them grow in their own career paths. So, for example, since I am from the IT world, in the IT world, if I aspire to join an organization or I am looking for a job coming out of college, if I understand the strategy of an organization, what are they investing in, what is their vision, where will their future investments go, then I can train myself to align to that vision and strategy. So if a company is investing in cloud, artificial intelligence, or machine learning, then if I am trained or certified in those areas, then my potential to get a job if I am a student looking for a job, or my potential to grow and get promoted to senior positions if I'm already employed in that company, is that much more if I am observing the business strategy of the company and equipping myself to contribute to that strategy. So it's very critical to understand the strategy of an organization.
Yeah, I think you touched upon the points of studying about the company and understanding their vision and strategy, and based on that one has to prepare in order to get placed in that particular organization. And once they get placed and if they become an employee, how should an employee get aligned to the overall business strategy?
Yes, that's a very good question again. As we all know, in the IT field, things are literally changing every 6 months, whether it is technology or strategy. So if an employee is keenly following the strategy of their company, so for example, if I am in a IT product company and my product in the last several years has been based on COBOL code. Now, because of change in various factors, the company decides I want to move to Java microservices and my product should be cloud ready. And if the employees are actually tracking the strategy of the company, not taking it as something for the seniors, then they will know that this change is going to happen. And they equip themselves, get trained themselves, irrespective of whether the company is sponsoring that training programs or not. That's a separate issue altogether. But if I, as an employee, invest in my own training to pick up skills in Java microservices or cloud, then I can ask for those new challenging projects, prove my capabilities, and grow in the organization, because I will be seen as somebody who is proactively contributing to the strategy of the organization, to the growth of the organization.
Yeah, I think you have touched upon a very important aspect which many people overlook, and this reminds me a situation in the past when I was part of a major multinational conglomerate. We had to migrate from one ERP to another ERP, and also at that point in time we maintained mainframe systems, and even some of our IT applications from mainframe systems have to be migrated to the new ERP. And we have had certain employees who were with the system for 25 to 30 years, and they were quick enough in terms of adapting to the new ERP system, and they have gone above and beyond their call of duty and pursued some certifications, and I now see them in successful global leadership positions. So this is a very, very important tip. Thanks for sharing, Prasad. And how does a strategic level business decision impact the employees, either positively or negatively?
Yeah, it has been changing. The job scenario for all of us as employees in organizations has been changing over the period of time. I think earlier, during our parents' time, if you got a job, then you would grow in the job and you could assume an automatic promotion if you spent a certain number of years in each position. I don't think that is true any longer. Even if you have spent, I know people who have spent 8 to 10 years in call centers and they continue to remain in that same position. But But if the employees have looked at where the organization is investing, what is the strategy of the organization, and they have invested in themselves, in getting trained, in getting certified in the areas where the strategy is keen to invest for the organization, and they have gone and requested for training or projects in those areas, then they have grown. Sometimes the employees have grown faster than the organization itself, because the management sees those employees driving the growth of the organization and the strategy itself. And the employees contribute to that strategy after a certain point in time, because they understand the strategy better than some of the people already there in the senior management. So I have seen employees grow faster than the organization because they have aligned to the strategy and understood the strategy better than most. And there is a negative scenario as well. I mean, if you choose not to train yourself or even participate in trainings that the company may organize, then the company may decide you are slowing down the growth, and then you may become redundant. That's the sad.
Yeah, I can relate this one quote which says the early bird gets the first worm. So which means if an organization is in the transformation or on the verge of adapting some big change initiatives, whoever is willing to be part of that change as an early adopter, they are going to make big. Thank you for those insights.
Prasad, while we are on the strategic level discussions, as a technologist and as a business leader, you had the opportunity to work with the CXOs across the industry. What are the typical conversations like when you have those discussions with them?
Yeah, so for most part of my career, I have been working in the intersection point of banking and technology. So I largely work with banks, and banking is evolving rapidly, as we all know. And there is a famous quote from Bill Gates where he said, "We all require banking, but we don't need banks." Right? So that's
Yeah.
that's a very dicey position if you are working in a bank or you are running a bank, right? So that is where the conversation is. And today we see a lot of fintechs and new technology companies getting into banking related services. You see Google Pay, you see Amazon wallets, and everybody is getting into different kinds of banking services. So my conversation with banks is around that, how they can continue to offer their services at much cheaper rates, but with the same level of security, and offering the technology and convenience at the level of what an Amazon or a Google can give, like a simple online service, right? So that's where the conversations are mostly because most of the banks are heavily regulated by various government agencies, have been in existence, if not for hundreds of years, in Europe and UK and other places in US. In India, at least, banks are more than 70, 80 years old. And so they don't have the advantage of a Google or an Amazon to quickly move. They have to deal with this legacy technologies, legacy baggage and regulations. And all the conversation is about how can banks move beyond being a simple basic banking service provider to be able to give comfortable, easy to use services that the current generation requires, while still maintaining the trust, right? So today, most of us will trust our money still with a bank. I'm not sure we will trust Google or Amazon with our monies as much as we would trust a bank. Hopefully that will continue for banks. And while banks want to retain that trust, they also want to make services easy to use, like a Google or Amazon. So our conversations are around how banks can build their strategies to move into that direction, to not just survive as a bank, but to effectively contribute in this economy where digital requirements, digital solutions are critical, and therefore a technology strategy is important, not just a business strategy. In the olden days, when we learned software engineering, people said business will give us requirements and then technology should implement. Then it slowly changed to technology strategy needs to align to business strategy. But today, if you look at Google Pay or Uber or any of these, technology is also deciding business strategy to some extent. It is not one-way street flowing from business down to technology, but many times technology drives the business strategy. So they are both hand in hand in contributing to the growth of banks and institutions, and they work very closely together. So my conversations are around how banks can evolve into that space.
That's a great insights into the CXO level conversations, especially from the banking and financial sector, Prasad. That actually prompted me to ask this follow-up question. In the earlier times, like you rightly said, technology used to be an enabler. Now technology is part and parcel of any business strategy, and it is in the core, like the customer experience. So when you talk about the customer experience and digital transformation, so call it the bots for customer service, facial recognition to have better authentication, coupled with artificial intelligence, machine learning, or neuro-linguistic programming. I think all these coupled together will give the better customer experience, a seamless engagement model for the customers, and at the same time, how technology can actually enforce some of the compliance related activities as well in this regulated arena. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. You are perfect to the point, right? On one side, you have technology which makes our life easier. At the click of a button, you can pay for something that you want in the color or shape that you want, and within 24 hours, it is shipped to your house. So there is so many players working in the back end to make that happen, right? From your e-commerce portal to the banking side and the logistics side. That is one side of it. At the same time, if you are paying using your bank account or credit card, you don't want that security to be compromised. You don't want your credit card details or bank details to be compromised. So that is where the banks come in, and the artificial intelligence and regulatory technologies that are there play a large role in that. So on the other end of the spectrum, so one end of the spectrum is you have the customer facing technologies. The other end of the spectrum is all of these technologies working in the back end, so that the moment you click, how do they all integrate with each other while maintaining the security, while meeting all regulatory requirements like the central bank and other security requirements. At the same time, you don't want the process to take like 10 minutes for you to get a confirmation of shipment, right? You want it to happen within 5 seconds. So all of that is because of the technology that is working in the back end.
Yeah, I think technology plays a very vital role, and as you have mentioned, business and technology roles are blurred. So it is necessary for everyone to have that particular acumen towards contemporary technologies and see the fitment of it in terms of how can we enable better customer experience. I think these kind of discussions will definitely be thought-provoking, and at the same time encourages employees at mid-leadership level and at various levels to think differently and come up with innovative solutions. Thank you for those wonderful insights.
So Prasad, many of the millennials are highly aspirational, today, and they want to lead businesses as soon as they can, which I think is, amazing thing. At what career stage you think they can start learning more about the core of the business, and how can one become a better business leader?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question because the economy is finally driven by individuals and not just by large organizations. And there is no age for somebody to become a business leader or even to set up their own business. You hear of kids starting up business when they're still in school, and most of the technology companies have been started by people who have dropped out of college, and there are businesses where people have started when they are 50 years plus of age. So In terms of age, I don't think there is a particular age when you can start a business or become the leader of your business. But it is something that should be driven by deep passion to do something. The moment especially if it is your own business and you aspire to be a leader in that business, then there is no working hour and personal life separation, at least in the initial couple of years. You need to be having a deep passion for that business. You, especially also for the business to grow and for yourself to grow in that business, you should understand what are the problems that you are trying to solve, your business is trying to solve. And more importantly, is somebody willing to pay for that solution to resolve that problem? Because finally it will be that payment which will meet your economic needs, help you to grow, help you to sustain, help your business to grow, and also your family to survive along with you if you have dependents. And if you want to take on employees, then that payment will help you to pay them. So while there is no rule to become a leader and set up your own business and grow, especially as an entrepreneur, you should expect 100% commitment. There is very rarely an entrepreneur who has succeeded while doing part-time business. Part-time business is only to do pass your time, but if you want to become a leader, it has to be 100+% commitment. Same thing goes if you are an employee within a company. Nowadays you hear the term called intrapreneur. You work in growing as an entrepreneur within a large organization or a small organization. And when we discussed earlier, we said if you are aligning with the strategy of the organization, you are contributing to the strategic goals of the organization. And working as an intrapreneur, that is, you are investing in yourself to help the organization achieve the goal. Then 9 times out of 10, you will be recognized as a person who is leading things from the front and who will help the organization grow and achieve its goals. And therefore, you are recognized as a leader within the organization.
So Prasad, I think passion to make a difference and commitment are required for anyone to be a successful entrepreneur. And at the same time, if somebody wants to grow as a leader, maybe they have to align to the organization strategy and start working as entrepreneur. I think these are all very beautiful tips. Now, when we are talking to our guests, the seasoned leaders like you who have already proven yourself and grown big in your area, we often come across the importance of mentorship. So what is mentorship for you, and how do you think it helps any individual grow both on personal and on professional fronts?
Yeah, I think mentorship has helped me personally grow a lot. To me, simple example that I can think of is we can't learn everything ourselves firsthand. For example, we can't learn that the fire is dangerous by burning ourselves first time, right? So somebody has told us that is fire, it will be hot, and if you go too near, you will get burned. So we know that we should not go. So mentorship is something like that in my personal experience. And sometimes, especially the younger kids, think that you should have one mentor and you should try to follow them. In my view, you can have more than one mentors at any given point in time, depending on what your goals in life are at that point. And you don't really need to have that mentor in person working with you. You can have an Ekalavya kind of a relationship with your mentor and learn from them. So for example, if setting up a business and running something new is an example that you would like to learn from, then Steve Jobs is a good mentor. How he set up Apple as a company, even though he was thrown out of the company, how he came back and set up completely from scratch a new business. There are so many things to learn. Similarly, you have so many other people whom you can see, study their life, read up about them and learn. So you can have an Ekalavya relationship. And like I said, you may have somebody who is your mentor in person or otherwise for a career. You can have somebody for life training in terms of how to handle the challenges in life. And you could have somebody mentoring you how to balance life and work, because we see today kids these days are under a lot of stress especially with the COVID kind of scenario, sitting at home. I know people are saying I have to work 20 hours. Earlier, I used to go to office, I log out from office. At least I used to have free time, So you could have a mentor who can coach you how to balance work and life. So you don't need to have one mentor. You don't need to have that mentor physically meeting with you a couple of times in a month. Read and learn. So in my view, I have taken that approach in my life, and I have learned a lot from people. Sometimes the people who have taught me may not know that they have been teaching me. I see, I observe, I learn how they handle situations, and they have become my mentor. So it has helped me, and I think everybody who is keen to learn and grow in life, mentorship is a very good way to look at it, by observing and learning from people.
Willingness to learn by observing and following the leaders' best practices, even though they may not have direct relationship with you, that you can have that camaraderie one-on-one. Great points. So Prasad, with so many things going around you, especially when you are taking the bigger and much larger portfolios, what helps you in moving forward?
So very early in life, one of my mentors taught me to make goals, So if you write a goal down, it is making yourself clear about what you want to achieve. We talked about strategy and vision and mission for an organization earlier. I think personally, every person who is investing in any form of education, it is somebody's money that is being invested. They should make a goal. And I have this habit of making 1 year, 3 year and 5 year goals, and I make it a habit. What do I need to achieve this goal? And then at the end of each year, I see what I have been able to achieve in the 1 year goal. So am I moving towards achieving my 3 year and 5 year goals, or do I need to make up somewhere, or do I sometimes maybe I need to adjust my goals for 3 year, 5 year, right? So I have the habit of writing down my goals at the end of the year. It may not be a calendar year, January to December, but I sit typically once in a year. I make down 3, 4, 5 points that I want to achieve. That will be aligned to my 3 year goal, 5 year goal. What has helped me? What has not helped me? What do I need to do myself in terms of upskilling, in terms of maybe investment, in terms of unlearning some bad habits that I may have picked up? All of these things, I make a note, and then I adjust my strategy and goals so that, and sometimes I change my 3 year, 5 year goals. So that has helped me grow, and that has also helped me manage more difficult engagements, grow as a person, both professionally and personally.
That is really great, Prasad. Overall, we really appreciated your insights in this overall episode. It was a great conversation on various aspects of business, starting from vision, strategy, the tactics that you need to work on, amazing things. And this conversation gave us a glimpse of how organizations think at the broader level and how they build their long-term strategy, and as employees, how we all can align ourselves to make the best out of it. And obviously at the end, the learning, unlearning, adjusting, recalculating, this tip I think will be really useful for our listeners. Thank you very much, Prasad.
Thank you very much, Sudhakar Garu, Naveen Garu. It has been a great pleasure talking to you and discussing these things which are very relevant, whether it is at our age, at our stage in career, or for somebody just passing out of college. I think these are very key issues that all of us get through each day in our careers. So it's been a great pleasure talking to you about this.
Thank you, Prasad.
Dear listeners, to know more about our speaker and the content, visit or follow us on social media, or feel free to email us.
All right. So it brings us to the trivia segment of today's episode. And today's trivia is about ticker tape symbol of a company. In case if you are not aware of what a ticker tape is, it is a computerized device that relays financial information to investors around the world. For example, XYZ company will display their share price, whether it has grown or shrunk from their previous day, with red or green indication. Typically, it is found in all the stock exchanges. And on the New York Stock Exchange, have you wondered what would be the ticker tape symbol for a beverages company called AB InBev? AB InBev is Anheuser-Busch company, and the ticker tape symbol for that company is a Bud, B-U-D, because the company manufactures the world famous Budweiser beer. Interesting, isn't it? If you'd like to share any trivias, please feel free to share them through email, and our email address is theguidingvoiceforyou@gmail.com, or SMS us or text us at India number 9494 587 187. We will not only share best trivias in future episodes, we will also announce your names. Again, we are open for suggestions on topics that you would like to hear from us through our email address. Our email address is theguidingvoice4u@gmail.com. You may also WhatsApp us on our India number 9494 587 187. Like our page on Facebook, facebook.com/theguidingvoice4u, or follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/guidingvoice. To stay tuned about our future episodes. We are also available on Instagram as The Guiding Voice for You. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/The Guiding Voice. There is more in store. Until next time, have a wonderful time. Thank you for listening. Take care and be safe.